Both rich and poor are busy preparing for Christmas, but this greedy old man keeps himself isolated from the world. However, everything changes when a ghost visits him to show the bitter past and future. Ebenezer Scrooge is a greedy old man who works as a moneylender along with his business partner, Jacob Marley. On Christmas Eve, Jacob Marley dies all of a sudden, but has no family or friends to arrange his funeral. Scrooge doesn't like spending money, so he tries his best to pay the least for Jacob's death certificate. He even picks up the pennies used to close Jacob's eyes. Scrooge is a man with no emotions. While others are enjoying Christmas with celebration songs, shopping, and huge banquets, Scrooge doesn't even bother to smile. Some poor fellows request him for a penny, but Scrooge warns them with a dead glare. He doesn't like to help anyone or even greet them. He spends the whole Christmas day working in his office. 7 years pass away after his partner's death, but Scrooge hasn't changed a bit. It's Christmas Eve, but Scrooge's office is still open. His only employee, Bob, is also forced to work. He's freezing and cold and wants to turn on the heater, but Scrooge doesn't allow that to save money. He has even locked the coal box so Bob doesn't use it. Suddenly the door knocks and Scrooge's cheerful nephew Fred enters the office. He loudly says Merry Christmas, but Scrooge doesn't like hearing that phrase. He believes that Christmas doesn't give you any profit, so no one should celebrate it, especially poor people like Fred who can't even pay his utility bills. Scrooge was also against Fred's decision to get married and start a family because it seems like a waste of money. Poor Fred doesn't mind his uncle's harsh words because he sees Christmas as a chance to forgive and reunite. Therefore, he wants to invite Scrooge for the Christmas dinner, even though Scrooge never spared him a penny. Fred doesn't like his uncle being so cold-hearted and prays for the day when Scrooge will regret his life choices. Saying this, Fred leaves in a hurry because he needs to make a lot of preparations. After a while, two gentlemen visit Scrooge and ask for donations. They are planning to buy food and warm clothes for the poor and need help in collecting enough money. Scrooge refuses to help because he thinks the poor should be working in the factories to earn for themselves. The gentlemen get really shocked to hear the statement and explain that the poor are dying of hunger. But Scrooge doesn't hesitate to say that the poor should die anyway and decrease the population. After the gentleman's departure, Scrooge also prepares to go home, but Bob requests him to grant leave for Christmas. It's the only holiday Bob gets, but he still has to beg Scrooge every year. Scrooge reluctantly agrees, and Bob starts jumping in joy. After a small walk, Scrooge finally reaches his giant house where he lives all alone. He proceeds towards the door to unlock it, but notices a weird creature. It seems like the door is possessed by a ghost. Scrooge gets scared and falls down, but when he gets up, the door turns normal again. Scrooge considers it an illusion and heads towards his room. After changing clothes, Scrooge sits down near the fireplace to eat his dinner, but feels uncomfortable and starts locking up all the doors. Suddenly, the bells on the wall start ringing by themselves, and the noise keeps getting louder and louder. When it stops, the doorknob starts moving. Scrooge gets really scared already, but there's still a lot to see. Without opening the door, a weird-looking man enters the room wrapped in chains. He is the ghost of Scrooge's business partner, Jacob. Scrooge refuses to believe his eyes and blames indigestion for making him see things. Jacob gets angry and forces Scrooge to believe in him and understand why he is in such a miserable condition. The chains wrapped around him are the ones he forged during his lifetime by not doing any good deeds. They are really heavy and painful, but Jacob has been carrying them for 7 years. He can't find peace or comfort anywhere, and it's all because of the lifestyle he adopted. While Jacob was alive, he spent all his energy in gathering money and taking advantage of people who borrowed loans from him. He always considered himself a good businessman, but after dying, Jacob realized that his real business was helping mankind, but he never did it. He can't help himself, but Scrooge still has time to save himself from meeting a similar fate. Jacob came here to warn him, and 3 more spirits will also meet Scrooge tonight to show him the unseen side of his life. Saying this, Jacob flies out of the window while Scrooge gets to witness other miserable ghosts regretting their choices. Now they want to help others, but unfortunately, it's too late. Scrooge goes to sleep, but in the middle of night, a sharp light wakes him up. It's a talking candle, one of the spirits Jacob mentioned. He introduces himself as the ghost of Christmas past and asks Scrooge to follow him. As soon as the spirit touches Scrooge, he begins to fly and travels to the past. The spirit grabs his hand and drags him back to the time when Scrooge was just a little kid. His eyes get filled with tears, but he still pretends to be a strong, emotionless man. Suddenly, a carriage passes by him with several kids who studied in the same class as Scrooge. However, they always ignored Scrooge, and he usually stayed alone in his classroom. The spirit fast forwards to Christmas when Scrooge was a teenager. His beloved sister arrived to take Scrooge home. His father was a strict man who hardly let Scrooge visit home, but his sister always stayed beside him. Fred was her only child, but Scrooge never treated him with the love his sister expected. The spirit fast forwards again and reaches the place where Scrooge started his first job. His boss was a great man and helped Scrooge in becoming a friendly person. On Christmas Eve, Scrooge didn't go home so he could help his team prepare for the grand banquet. The whole town gathered to sing and dance in joy. Scrooge was also randomly paired with a woman named Belle and fell in love with her at first sight. They got lost in each other's eyes and danced all night. At that moment, Scrooge thought that he would spend his whole life with Belle, but things changed really quickly. Just in a few years, Scrooge's thirst for money grew really strong, and he wanted Belle to become a successful rich woman. Because of the sudden death of her parents, Belle began to struggle financially, but Scrooge didn't help her. Instead, he told her to earn a huge amount of money if she wants to get married to him. Belle couldn't take it anymore, and broke up with Scrooge because he was no longer the person she fell in love with. After seeing this bitter memory, the old Scrooge starts to suffer in pain and asks the spirit to take him away. When the spirit tells him to face reality, Scrooge forcefully covers the spirit and flies up in the sky. After a while, the spirit disappears and Scrooge falls back in his room. He notices the light coming from the living area and gets up to inquire. The whole place is decorated, and there's a pile of gifts in the corner. A cheerful man is sitting there holding a light, and he introduces himself as the ghost of Christmas present. Scrooge knows that the spirits are coming to show him something, so he asks the ghost of Christmas present to take him wherever he wants. The ghost asks him to hold the robe, but as soon as Scrooge does that, the ghost comes down to start the magic. He sprinkles some golden dust from his torch, and the room's floor becomes transparent. Afterward, they start flying around the town, and Scrooge can see everything through the transparent floor. He witnesses the kids playing in the snow, which brings a soft smile on his face. Scrooge never noticed it before, as he was always focused on his selfish desires. The spirit also takes him to the top of the church and shows the breathtaking view. Scrooge seems mesmerized, but he hasn't seen the other side of the story yet. The spirit takes him to the bakery where the poor people are lining up to bake their Christmas meal. Bob's children are waiting outside the bakery too. As soon as they smell their goose cooking, they run to inform their mother. Bob has a lot of children, and some of them work odd jobs to earn a living. They don't have plenty to eat, but Bob and his wife are still happy to see their family together on Christmas. The only thing that keeps worrying them is their youngest son's illness. Tim can't even walk without support, but keeps smiling to cheer up his parents. Scrooge feels sorry for the poor boy and asks the spirit when he's going to recover. The spirit takes a deep breath and reveals that Tim may not even survive till the next Christmas. Hearing this, Scrooge falls in deep shock and helplessly stares at Tim. Suddenly, the kids bring the cooked goose and excitedly put it in the middle of the table. It may not be enough for all of them, but they are still thankful and pray for a better meal next Christmas. Bob starts the dinner by thanking Scrooge, who gave him the job, but his kids are not happy to hear that name. All of them know how greedy Scrooge is, and he never paid a reasonable salary. Little do they know, Scrooge is hearing everything, and he is not proud of his deeds. He asks the spirit to spare Tim's life, but the spirit reminds him what he always used to say: the poor people should die to decrease the world's population. Scrooge gets speechless and follows the spirit to the next stop. It is Fred's house, where he's playing games with his family and friends. He asks everyone to guess the name of a savage animal that keeps growling and grunting. The answer was Uncle Scrooge. The guests laugh out loud and call Scrooge the most selfish man they ever met. However, Fred's wife feels sorry for Scrooge because he has been suffering from loneliness for a long time. The rest of the people don't agree because Scrooge is the one who pushed away everyone. Fred still prays for his uncle's long life and wishes to celebrate the next Christmas with him. The spirit eventually takes him to a dark place and announces his departure. Scrooge suddenly notices something under the robe and asks the spirit what it is. The spirit removes the robe and shows two poor kids named Ignorance and Desire. They represent the selfish humans who ignore others' needs and keep desiring more for themselves. Saying this, the spirit falls on the ground while the kids start repeating the harsh words Scrooge used to say. After a while, the kids also disappear with the spirit and leave behind a shadow. The shadow eventually turns into a silhouette of a grim reaper that represents the third and the final spirit, the ghost of the future. Scrooge fears this spirit the most because he is afraid of what's going to happen in future. He asks the spirit to lead him, but the spirit throws him down from a dark staircase. He falls in the feet of three citizens who are talking about a recent death. From the conversation, Scrooge concludes that some greedy old man has died who was disliked by everyone. People don't even want to attend his funeral. Suddenly, the citizens disappear, and Scrooge is left in a dark alley. He gathers courage and starts looking around to figure out who died. The spirit appears again and points towards the shadow of a carriage with creepy horses and a mysterious rider. Before Scrooge can understand anything, the spirit asks the rider to attack him. Scrooge runs for his life, but all the streets are full of deadly ghosts coming after him. The horse rider keeps throwing a weird spell that causes Scrooge to shrink. He eventually turns into the size of a rat and hides inside a water pipe. After a while, he gets out through the other end, but the creepy rider is still after him. Scrooge was about to get caught, but he somehow managed to get inside another water pipe. This time he loses track and ends up sliding on the roofs. Scrooge tries to gain balance but fails and slips into a cloth bag. He opens his eyes in a small house where his maid lives with her husband. She has brought the curtains that belong to the dead man and also plans to take the blankets because the greedy man never gave anything while he was alive. The maid also mentions the shirt the old man was wearing during his funeral. She secretly took away that as well and buried the man naked. The couple keeps making fun of the dead man because he wasted his life collecting money and eventually left everything behind. He died miserably, and no one was beside him while he took his last breath. This is what happens when you push everyone away from you. Suddenly, the maid's husband notices a rat, and while trying to kill it, he accidentally kicks Scrooge out of his house. Scrooge ends up in a dark room where he meets the spirit again. The body of the dead man is lying behind him, but Scrooge already knows who it is. He has accepted his fate and concludes that the greedy man who died in such a miserable condition is no other than himself. Before seeing the dead body, Scrooge requests the spirit to show someone who felt any emotions caused by this death. The spirit agrees and shows a poor couple who borrowed some money from the dead man, but failed to return it in time. They get really happy to hear about his death as they can finally sleep peacefully. They are pretty sure that the new creditor can never be as merciless as the dead man. Seeing this, Scrooge gets even more depressed and asks the spirit to show anyone who caused sadness by his death. The spirit takes Scrooge to Bob's house where his family is waiting for him. Bob had gone to bury his beloved Tim. He promises to visit the grave every week and asks his family to always remember their youngest member. Saying this, Bob passes by Scrooge to go upstairs, but his teary eyes break Scrooge's heart. He can't take it anymore and asks the spirit to reveal the face of the dead man. The spirit takes him to the graveyard and throws him near a headstone. Before reading the headstone, Scrooge wants to know if these illusions are things that must happen or things that may happen. When the spirit doesn't answer, Scrooge starts explaining that man's decisions in his life decides his future, so it must be possible to change the future by changing the decisions. The spirit still doesn't answer and reveals the name on the headstone. Scrooge refuses to accept his death, but the spirit keeps revealing the headstone that marks Christmas as Scrooge's death day. Scrooge tries to run away, but the grave opens up with a coffin at the bottom. He hangs on the edge and begs the spirit to give him another chance. He promises to honor Christmas and change his lifestyle. He will not forget the lessons taught by the three spirits, but he wants to know if the future can be changed anyhow. The spirit doesn't tell anything and throws Scrooge towards the coffin. Scrooge screams in fear and closes his eyes. After a while, he wakes up in his own room and gets excited to realize that he's still alive. He jumps in joy and opens the window to breathe the fresh air. Scrooge stops a young boy to know how much time has passed. Luckily, it's still Christmas and Scrooge can fix his mistakes. He asks the boy to bring the biggest turkey from the market so he can send it to Bob's house. Afterward, he goes downstairs and wishes his maid a happy Christmas. He also dresses up nicely and grabs a carriage to slide on the ice. It's been a long time since he had so much fun. Scrooge also starts greeting everyone with a smile and sings Christmas songs. He can't waste a moment and meets the charity worker to ask for a favor. Not only does he want to forgive all the debts, Scrooge is also willing to return the previous payments to help the poor families. Moreover, he is doing all the charities anonymously. Later that day, Scrooge finally reaches Fred's house and asks if he can join them for dinner. Everyone is shocked by his presence, but they still welcome him with open arms. Scrooge really enjoys himself and insists on arranging the next Christmas dinner at his house. The next morning, Bob gets a little late for work, but instead of getting angry at him, Scrooge announces a raise in his salary. He also promises to do whatever it takes to help Bob's family. But first, he asks Bob to bring another bag of coal so he doesn't have to work in a cold booth. Scrooge's change wasn't for just a day. He did more than he promised and became a second father to little Tim. He turned into a good master, a good friend, and the best man the city ever knew.